Hey guys, welcome to Fox RC Podcast. Welcome to the show. The best guest is Tim Stafford, the co-host, and the best guest, Daddy Mike on the house.
Daddy Mike in the house. Nice. Yes. What's up, Seth Erre?
Hi.
How's school going, man?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? We had half a day today?
Yep.
Yeah. It was a big deal, huh?
Half day Friday.
Half day Friday.
Happy Friday.
I don't know that it's every Friday, but it's the Friday before Labor Day. So it's half day Friday, which means we delayed the start of the podcast until Seth can make an appearance. Yeah. The outcry against heaven and earth was too great. So Seth Erre.
Yeah.
So what's going
Everybody
on?
wants to hear from Seth Erre.
Everybody wants to hear from Seth Erre. So tell us what's going on. What did you just have for lunch?
I got a broccoli and...
You did not eat broccoli.
No, I eat yogurt and...
Oh, that was your snack. Yeah, you had yogurt.
And juice box.
And a juice box. Oh, yeah, yummy. But what did you have for lunch? Right now, what did you have?
Zaxby's.
Zaxby's, ladies and gentlemen. Because, why?
Chick-fil-A is downgraded.
Chick-fil-A is downgraded. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. We've talked about this in previous episodes. It's a big deal, guys. It's a big deal.
Chick-fil-A has been knocked off the throne.
Welcome to Seth Erre Radio. Yeah, Seth wants to do a radio episode for Voxology. So Seth, let's talk about some of the songs that you would choose for if we did a Spotify episode for Seth Erre Radio. What are some of the songs you would choose?
Mr. Break My Heart.
Break My Heart by Tayo Cruz. Excellent, like 2004.
Yeah.
With Ludacris.
Tim.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
What?
Hate That Break My Heart.
Hit That Break My Heart?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't think we have that one queued up, but
Yeah, I don't have the rights for that.
hit the theme song. All right.
Sharon, please.
There it is. So Seth Erre has a playlist on my phone, and those songs, I don't know, we play probably 8,000 times every time we're in the truck together. And Break My Heart by Tayo?
I don't think I know that one. I'll have to look it up.
No, you really don't need to.
No? Okay.
Nope, don't need to at all. You're not missing a darn thing, my friend, but let me take you back to 2004 or 5, I don't even know. Anyway, Timothy, what's happening with you? How was your week? Let's do some witty banter. Let's do some witty banter.
Some week 2 of school.
Yes?
It's very hot.
Very hot.
Kids are already lethargic.
Well, yeah, I'm surprised they waited to week 2.
I know. Week 1, they're all scared because they're mostly freshmen, so they're
nice.
kind of easing into being on their own kind of for the first time, and then week 2
Do you make them call you Dr. Stafford?
No, I'm not a doctor.
So what? They don't know.
No, they mostly just call me Stafford. They'll all call me Professor when they're like kind of like worried and nervous on their
Yeah.
And
Professor,
then after a while,
could I have
it's
extra
Stafford.
credit?
Yeah,
But it's
and
usually
then while
Stafford.
we're walking across campus, I just hear Stafford.
Nice.
And I look over and it's some kid.
So
from
you've
a
kind of
previous class.
achieved Gombas status or Madonna status or Prince status.
That's right.
Just
Yeah,
one word.
I might actually get it legally changed.
Yeah, just Stafford.
Just drop it to 1. Yeah.
But keep 2 F's or
Probably. It's already confusing enough. I don't know how many applications I get back with the Tim Stanford. Or
lame.
emails Tim Stanford.
Lame. Timothy, anything else? Okay, so it's hot, school, but you're good otherwise.
Hot school. Yep. Just hanging out.
It's hot boy summer.
Yep.
I wanted to let you know that still vaping.
Yeah.
Going on week number 3, some sort of heinous cough. Thank you very much.
Heinous.
Yeah, whatever bronchioles are involved in that. But anyway, brothers and sisters, welcome to the show. we start with Seth. We start with the Tim update. I mean, what else could you possibly ask for at the front end? There isn't a whole heck of a lot.
Just pure electricity.
It is. I mean, and I feel the juice. You feel the juice. So let's just get this thing rolling, ladies and gentlemen.
Rolling's like, 2000 Limp Bizkit.
Limp Bizkit, yep.
As long as we're doing terrible deep cuts.
Yep.
Keep rolling.
Yeah. I know. The poor, I mean, I it would be interesting to know what part of our audience is pre-40. I meant under the age of 40, not pre-40. And has no idea that of these, monsters, or maybe under 30, maybe some. I mean, because you're what? You're
43.
Oh, just a pup, dude.
Just a pup.
Yeah. I'm 57.
Just a midlife pup. 57, huh?
Sure, I feel like
You're
57
cruising.
today. That's right. I'm sliding into home at that point. Hey, so let's do some thank yous, Timothy.
Okay.
As always.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you. No, I was thinking about thanking other people who get involved in our community.
I thought we were just going to have a one-on-one affirmation session real quick.
Absolutely, Tim. I love your hair. Have you ever seen it's online, it's called Playground Insults on the BBC?
I don't think so.
So they get
sounds
two
familiar, but I can't.
They get two co-stars. And the idea is that you're supposed to insult them in the silliest of ways. So like Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg did one that is just the greatest. Ryan Reynolds did one with Josh Brolin about Deadpool 2. I think that was pretty funny. Yeah. All that is to say, we could do the reverse of that. Playground affirmations.
Affirmations. I like
Tim,
your shoes.
I like your shirt today, Tim. No, I want to thank people outside of our community who have come on our team to support us. And so thank you to Daniel and to Brian and to Miles. Way to go, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on the Patreon team, man. It is such a gift, as we say every single episode, such a gift to be able to be a part of a community that helps support the cause. And then our friend Heather. I don't know if you know Heather. Heather planted Vox Community with us way back in the day. And I saw her name and was just like, oh my goodness, she's the greatest. So thank you guys very, very much. If you want to find out more about what we're up to, you can go to voxologypodcast.com. Find out we have two giving platforms, tithe.ly or Tithely as we call it, and then Patreon. Or you can go to patreon.com and type in Voxology Podcast. All that is to say, we are a crowdfunded 501c3 and are grateful for your support. Now, speaking of
like the playground affirmations, that should be something we do with the guests. It'll make everybody so wildly uncomfortable.
And
welcome to the broadcast. We'd like to do this little segment with you.
Yeah, not tell them ahead of time. And they have to compliment us too. So it's like it has to be a mutual. I know. I think that could get us into trouble. But speaking of trouble, Timothy, we got some feedback from last episode. So Timothy,
what?
Tim's troubled times turned into terrific amounts of email and feedback, which we love. And I'm sorry we don't respond to all of it. You guys are overwhelmingly engaged, and we love it. And we're slowly working our way. But I've got some responses, Tim, that I thought would be fun to read because
we get such varied responses to things. Like I have the email open right now and I can see, and you have everything from tremendous, well-vetted theological pushback on something down to someone emailed in and shared a crossword in the New York Times where the answer was Eddie Vedder, and that was it. Just hey, 5 across.
It's the greatest.
Blank Vedder, lead singer of Pearl Jam, and that's it. That's the whole email.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So what we're saying is you guys are amazing. We were voted, by the way, most intelligent podcast by podcastersanonymous.com. And so congratulations. And I think you'll see this intelligence reflected in the numerous emails that we got and that I have asked permission from people to read. So, and some of these are a little longer, but the reason we choose them is they all make very salient points and bring perspectives to the discussion. If you missed last episode, Tim was just bringing up, what does it look like to be engaged in our world? Like, no small question there. And somehow we turned that into an hour-long conversation. Mike and Tim, we all miss Seth today. There was groaning and gnashing of teeth by the collective groans and wails of the community. So not after this one, you're not going to miss Seth. What a great topic and a very welcome comeback of Tim's troubled times. Thank you, dear listener. I heard the shout out requesting to hear from your Hong Kong correspondent, so I thought I'd write in during my ferry commute to work this morning. So this is coming at you live from Hong Kong. My wife is right along with Tim and death scrolls the internet daily. I like that, death scrolling. She mourns, grieves, and feels the weight of the hypocrisy, polarization, and political slant of every single issue. Her top topics are Christian nationalism, the GOP evangelical theocracy / fascism / authoritarian movement, civil rights, LGBTQ plus issues, abortion, and everything else under the sun that's related to these issues. So, in other words, there's a lot to like dwell in and immerse yourself in. For myself, I want to sit in this tension and understand all these issues, but sometimes, parenthesis, most of the time, these topics are so very overwhelming. I really struggle with the breakdown of community and relationships. Boy, amen to that. I see family and dear friends whom we've known for 20 plus years become brainwashed by some of the Christian nationalism stuff. And we can't so much so that we can't even dialogue anymore. I've deactivated my Facebook and have really taken a step back from social media. I think a lot of us are either doing that or thinking about doing that. I've been trying to focus on small groups, home group, and keeping a space at our table for the marginalized and fractured and broken. I love that. Unfortunately, Hong Kong is still in a COVID state, and we still wear masks everywhere we go and are not allowed to have groups more than 6 to 8 in a gathering. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Though things are getting a bit better, but after 2.5 years of self-isolation and inability to travel internationally, I've developed into a bit of a hermit and socially distant human. I think we all would. I'm learning I'm in a season of sitting and waiting for the world to change and feel unable to do anything about it except watch it all burn. Yeah, but the view's probably better from Hong Kong. As a white American Christian male isolated in Hong Kong, without a big platform or voice anywhere, I've tried having conversations over social media DMs with friends who've totally drank the Kool-Aid of Christian nationalism, who arguably think that I have drank the Kool-Aid of the opposite side and accused me of being an evil, woke, democratic socialist who wants the USA to be a communist country.
Amen.
Please note, I have lived in communist China for 5 years, and have lived in Hong Kong through the 2019 protests and the dropping of the hammer of national security law. So I actually have a reference of a democratic country becoming a communist country, right? Transitioning from Hong Kong independently to be part of China. So all this to say, I love this perspective.
Yeah.
What am I doing about everything? 1, love my neighbor as myself. 2, vote overseas mail-in ballots. 3, donate to voices and causes I believe in. 4, keep an open seat at our table and in our home, even though it gets used infrequently. I'm not trying to discuss these things anymore, but have one-on-one conversations, preferably in person over a meal, but that is difficult in my current situation. Best regards. So there you go. Man, I think that describes a lot of us.
Yeah.
Even if we're not socially isolated, we're socially isolated.
Totally.
Like we have just a bunch of new neighbors moving into our neighborhood, and I go out and I'm
California.
Chipper Mike, and I always have to be really careful to sort of like be open to, because normally people aren't very careful back to me. They just sort of assume I'm thinking whatever they're thinking.
Right.
And so it's just this weird, like, you just can't make any kind of assumptions about anybody. And It's just
which is good, probably. I mean, that's at least a good side effect of all of this. Negativity is that it does, or it should, force you to be more genuine with your interactions with people and not just assume their belief systems or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Because you know what they say about when you assume.
So next email. I listened to Monday's podcast feeling like I was having a talk with myself in the mirror. And that's what Tim and I looked, when we were looking at each other, it looked like we were looking in a mirror. That's how similarly... I was also
going to say, when I listened back to the podcast, it sounds like I'm talking to myself. Because I am. The
gravity of what is at stake in our country and the divisions between us inside and outside the church is at the very least demonic. First, please listen to Derwin Gray's sermon, August 21, The Mystery of Christ. All right, so we've got homework. Then I would suggest that we witness, all caps, that we be like our Lord when he spoke truth to power, and we respectfully quote Scripture, rightly dividing the word unapologetically, correctly, with the confidence of God's Spirit-enabled people. We have no reason to be afraid, and if we're going to go down, let's go down witnessing to the truth against corruption peacefully and to the glory of God. Now, first of all, thank you very much for those comments. And I don't know. I'm going to share something in after we get through these that I don't. I'm with you, but I'm not sure quoting the Bible is the answer. Sometimes maybe that we think it is, and I'm not saying you're saying this. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah.
That
you read unapologetically, and it made me think of what would unapologetics be?
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's funny.
That's not obviously what she was saying here, but
yeah, I'm totally with her though about not being afraid. Like so much fear drives evangelicalism these days. Yep. And because of that, we all get off our crosses because the matters are so urgent. And it's fascinating. Jesus spoke truth to power. Well, I mean, he spoke truth to religious power, his own people, and there was there was a sense where Jesus was a little coy with one of the Herods, calling him a fox. But John the Baptist spoke truth to power and was beheaded. I don't know how much.
Go tell that fox.
Yes, I love that line. Go tell that fox. A fox back in the day was the opposite of a lion. A lion was virtuous, courageous. A fox was crafty and cowardly, cunning, manipulative. So go tell that fox was an insult. So yes, I get the speak truth to power thing, but I don't know how much we can use Jesus as an example of what that looks like.
Right.
Unless it's religious power. And then we have plenty of examples about what that looks like. So great sinking thoughts. All right, another one. Oh man. Okay, so a couple of these are super long, but I think they're really, really good. So do not put us at more than 1 time speed. Do not right now. If you are, repent.
Put it on half speed.
Put it on half speed.
Listen to our voices.
Wow, that's amazing. All right. I greatly appreciate drawing the distinction between faithfulness and effectiveness. Like you, I grew up in 90s evangelical culture. What would people think when they hear that I'm a Jesus freak? Where saving souls was the top priority. And fighting culture wars was wars so that those we are trying to save aren't snatched away by the devil was a close second. All right, so saving souls and then fighting culture wars were 1 and 2. So much was and is at stake. I'm feeling echoes of Miller's The Crucible here with the hysteria. I know, total Stafford reference. With the hysteria over witchcraft and saving souls. So I can understand the temptation to set aside virtue and the fruit of the Spirit in order to save souls. I mean, what happens if someone ends up in hell because you weren't willing to take evasive action?
Right.
But like you said, We are never called to be effective. We're called to be faithful. In fact, isn't that the point of Jesus' words in Matthew 7? Those who say, Lord, Lord, and who are rightly effective with miracles and demon exorcisms and so on, but they're not welcomed into the kingdom, while those who are faithful are welcomed into the kingdom. In regards to the big question of do I focus on my community or take to the streets, I think it's both and rather than either or. During the civil rights movement, there were those who marched on Washington and marched across the bridge in Selma, but there were those who helped black folks register to vote and did other small things that we never read about in the history books. To look at it from another angle, I remember an article by Malcolm Gladwell that was written during the Arab Spring. All right, so this was like 2010, 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
And he discussed the importance of technology and social media in those uprisings. He argued that, yes, those tools helped get the word out and helped to make the crowds bigger, but the tools did not help the staying power of the movement.
Yeah.
He contrasted this with the civil rights movement here in America, where protesters were trained to take the abuse hurled at them by the authorities and other onlookers. So when push comes to shove, many of those in the Arab Spring protests left the scene out of fear for their safety, but those in America stayed because they were committed to the cause. All this reminds me of the line, which is paraphrased by U2 in Peace on Earth. So, man, he is buttering your bread here. That goes, don't become a monster to destroy a monster. Again, look at the civil rights movement. Those marching with MLK across the bridge didn't fight back, and the TV cameras were there to show the world how big a monster the system was. It's hard to support a system that beats and bullies old ladies who are simply wanting to vote. I wonder what would happen, here's where this is going, if the religious right took a similar approach to culture wars. Let's assume for a moment that these culture warriors are right, that the libs are trying to destroy the heart and soul of this country. What if instead of grabbing power and banning books and denying basic rights to fellow Americans, what if they took the approach of the protesters in the 60s who just stood there and bore the brunt of fire hoses and police dogs? What if instead, trying to overturn an election, they went out to encourage people to register to vote, to try to educate, not indoctrinate others, to help them cast an educated vote? I'm probably being too naively optimistic. No, I think that's a great point. All the virtue signaling on social media does nothing.
Yeah.
But the Christ-like character of the protests, that did something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of what ifs in there. It's interesting to look at the march across Selma, right, and why MLK shifted a lot of the tactics that he was using because of what wasn't working prior to that. But what was the end goal was a peaceful way of trying to advocate for people who were being othered and pushed down, and then to juxtapose that against January 6th, and where there's a huge uprising against something, and the response is complete violence, and like an advocation for violence. And so to look at like Selma and crossing the bridge and taking the brunt of that, and what it did, how many more pastors it united, how many white pastors joined his cause after that, seeing kind of firsthand that stuff, but then to look at January 6th and look at what the mostly white evangelical movement did in response to something that wasn't even true. But even if it was true, say it got proven that the election was stolen, that still is not the... And I say that in regards to MLK doing things in the name of Jesus, in the name of advocating for the Imago Dei within that setting. And at the Capitol, there were crosses and there were big Jesus banners and there was praise and worship music being played. So it's not a stretch to say that this is not also trying to be rooted in a, in a biblical setting or whatever. So just the disparity between those two events is alarming. But the what ifs of the entire culture has to change. It's not just like little pieces of it. It's the whole thing is upside down.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree, man. Man. All right, here's another one.
It's a good U2 song too.
Of course. Hi, Vox fam. Seth
Hi.
Erre, without you, I wouldn't be here, and neither would the rest of the Vox crew. That's how vital you are. It's kind of love that Sethy's getting. So Mike,
You better not get bored of this then.
I know, right? I'm with Tim. Okay, first of all, that is a horrible way to begin a sentence. The issue of legalizing conservative values in the name of Jesus is troubling. Mike, your point of how we respond to that troubling sense is right. We must configure how to use new creation dynamics against this. Old creation won't do. If we fight fire with fire by yelling or virtue signaling or directly shaming, we run counter to the water way of Jesus of turning the other cheek and fostering new creation, right? So fighting fire with fire, no, we want to fight fire with water. However, yet, but, and. Historically in the States, I love that. That's a great transition. Historically in the States, to be Christian was to be conservative more often than the reverse. That's reality. With that, and if I'm hearing Tim's concerns correctly, saying that nothing and or doing no work for liberal causes that very much seem Jesus-y unfortunately enables, on the surface at least, the same conservative as Christian rhetoric that often sounds louder than liberal as Christian rhetoric to reign supreme in the average American's consciousness of the way of what Jesus or of what the way of Jesus is. I hope that word vomit makes sense. You're both right, but I'm troubled too, and I'm troubled that many still think to be a Jesus follower you have to be conservative. So the issue is, hey, shouldn't we be virtue signaling that you can be not conservative and Christian, because so many people just think to be Christian is to be politically conservative? I think that's what he's saying. Also, he says, you are both right, but I'm troubled too, and I'm troubled that many still think to be a Jesus follower means that you have to be conservative. Yep, totally get that. He says, I know I have a parasocial relationship, but love you both and your well-articulated thoughts. Well, first of all, thank you. And we love you in a parasocial way. And then secondly, I'm delighted you think our thoughts are well thought out and articulated, because I think that's because
they aren't always.
We need to expose you to other podcasts.
No, this is as well thought out as it gets. Go nowhere else.
But I totally get, and I remember in 2016 when then candidate Trump was doing his then candidate Trump thing. I was, howling at the evangelical baptism of his nomination, and of course you got two responses. One is stay in your lane, don't be political. And then there was another response that was like, hey, I'm glad to know that you can follow Jesus and not buy into this. And so I think this emailer has a point in the sense that if we all just take the quiet way, how will anyone ever know that you can be something other than Christian and something other than conservative? Yeah. And I get that. The issue isn't whether or not people kind of know our views. It's what are we trying to accomplish? What do we hope to do? What motivation out of which we're, working? I mean, there is we had a Twitter follower who is a PhD candidate in political science or sociology, I think. And he tweeted me and he said, hey, I want to recommend a book. And it was called American Evangelicalism, Embattled and Thriving by Christian Smith. And so I ordered it on my little Kindle app, and I read it this week. And it has a really interesting sort of thesis that plays into some of the general thoughts here we're encountering. I still have a couple other emails, but I want to interject this thing before we move on. So Christian Smith is a sociologist. He's wrestling with the question, what, if any, religious groups are thriving in postmodern, secular, pluralistic culture? And if so, if there are any, why are they thriving?
So not just in the current because of the current last 4 or 5 years. And
yeah, I think this was written in 2014.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Right, I wonder what he'd think now, but just listen to the conclusions. Now, I read it pretty quick. I don't know if I'm understanding all of the nuance. I'm not a sociologist, and I don't understand that research. So I'm just going to quote some of his conclusions without doing the work that he does to kind of show them. But I thought it was interesting, and I think it'll resonate a little bit with why I and we are so troubled with the whole culture war motif, even because we're still arguing about how to win a culture war. And we're saying, hey, guys, you can be faithful or you can be effective. But you're still looking at the world through culture war terms. I'm saying when you look at the world through the lens of faithful, you're not engaging in a culture war. You don't look out upon the world and see enemies to be vanquished and threats and things that could hurt us or take away our rights and freedoms. What you instead see is the glorious and redemptive work of God in all aspects of human life and all peoples in the human community that we have the privilege now to witness towards and to anticipate in the new creation dynamics we employ in just everyday life. So I'm trying to get us off culture. I'm not arguing that there's a better way to fight the culture war. I'm saying
wrong vantage
it's
point,
the wrong vantage point from the very beginning. And Christian Smith's research, I'm going to quote it because it backs me up. So check that out. Check out that great argument style. Seth
is literally how I taught the kids yesterday in my class on composition. Was you have to approach a paper like you're going to a street fight, like a gang fight. And it's your fight, but you got to bring like the big heavy hitters with you, or else you're going to lose that fight.
That's like the Beat It video from Michael Jackson.
Yep, I walked up in the classroom. No one can see me because we're on a podcast, but doing the snap.
Oh,
the Beat It snap.
Come on. Boom. All right, so Christian Smith. So he documents, he asks the question, what does it mean for a religious group to be thriving? And he comes up with a set of criteria, of course. And it says, compared to other religious groups, evangelicals are thriving. And what he means is the evangelicalism of America in 2014, I think it was when the book was published, was very much thriving according to these indicators. So that's his first supposition, is that, hey, compared to other religious groups, the measure of religious vitality, a part of American evangelicalism, is exceptional relative to the other groups that were being looked at.
Sure. Yeah.
One of the parts of that was the internal group cohesion of American evangelicals in the face of increasingly secular and pluralistic cultural factors. And so I'm just going to start quoting him. He says, and this is one of his conclusions, evangelicalism is thriving because of the fact that it is very much engaged in struggle with the institution, values, and thought processes of the modern world. Evangelicalism thrives on distinction, engagement, tension, conflict, and threat. Without these, evangelicalism would lose its identity and purpose. This is the product, or this is the reason, or the significance, of symbolic boundary marking, which evangelicals engage in. Boundary markers are central to the formation of evangelical identity because they promote a heightened awareness of the group's commonalities, and they frame interaction between members of the in-group and the out-group. All right, which I thought was fascinating. So he's like, why is evangelicalism thriving? Because it sees everything as a threat.
Yeah, totally.
So he lumps groups like this into a term, he calls them struggle groups. Struggle groups, of which we have many of those, right? I mean, there are many. Our partisan parties are these. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Struggle groups may actually search for enemies with the deliberate purpose of maintaining unity and internal cohesion.
Totally, yep.
Imaginary threats have the same group integrating function as real threats.
Yep.
We tend to fabricate enemies and exaggerate the threats they pose precisely in order to bolster members' commitment, solidarity, and financial contributions. Now, and then he gives 5 examples of Christians at various times and places writing about how we are literally dealing with the end of Christian civilization unless we do X. So one of those examples is from 1886, one is from 1921, one is from 1942, one is from 1984, and one is from 1986. And they all say the exact same thing, just substitute out whatever the issue is. Prayer in schools, changing Sabbath laws, whatever. But he's making this point that we have engaged in this behavior from the very outset of what evangelicalism it turns out to be. And then he draws this conclusion. And again, this is just interesting. He says, ironically, the very factors that foster evangelicalism's vitality also have the effect of undermining evangelicals' efforts at social influence. Distinction, engagement, and conflict with outsiders constitutes the cultural DNA of American evangelicalism. Evangelicalism's entire history, theology, and self-identity presupposes and reflects strong cultural boundaries with non-evangelicals, a zealous burden to convert and transform the world outside itself, and a keen perception of external threats and crises seen as menacing to what it views as cultural goods. In other words, and this, I mean, he spends a whole chapter on this, the very things that promote evangelical cohesion actually hurt and hinder the cause that evangelicals have banded together for, which is transformation of the social order. Right. Shocking. To think that you are morally superior and that everybody should follow a Christian way of life doesn't endear you to people who are not Christians. Shocking. And then, according to their research, evangelicals are, among other Protestant groups, are the most prepared to exert and influence in a way that they know may cause tension and conflict. And they are the least likely to try hard not to offend other people with their Christian views. And I just thought, okay, so I want to rewind that in light of what we've just said. Okay. Now let's assume he's right. All right, I have plenty of like anecdotal thoughts and intuitions that go, yeah, that seems about right. But I don't know the data and whatever else, and I don't know if it's changed in the last several years or not or whatever. But let's assume he's right, that evangelicalism, one tiny brand of Christianity, thrives on the struggle, having opposition and enemies and conflict and tension. And it keeps us mobilized and active, and there's a war to fight, whatever else. But, ironically, it ensures that the world we're trying to reach stays hostile to us because of the attitudes that promote the internal group cohesion to begin with. So if you apply this to culture war thinking, his argument is essentially the same argument I was trying to make just a few minutes earlier, which is even approaching a culture war as a culture war means you've lost as a follower of Jesus.
Right. No matter which side you're approaching.
No matter which side, whether you're progressive or whether you're conservative or you're moderate, it's irrelevant. To think of what we do as a culture war at all is to completely abandon the cruciform way of life.
Yeah.
And the ironic bit is that you're solidifying the people you're trying to reach in their antagonism towards you.
Oh, totally. The whole thing is so jacked up. I don't think it's even anecdotal because you can look at it historically, the trajectory that you just read, and that's just history. But it has become interesting is how much that has fed into like the marrying of the evangelical culture to the political right culture. Like those ties have gotten so tight that now that's the mentality. Those mentalities have merged into one mindset. And so now it's like it's interesting. It would be interesting to hear. Maybe we can get him on here because it would be interesting to hear if what his thoughts are after the last 8 years. Now, I guess, right? You said 2014.
Yeah,
was the book.
Let me confirm. Keep talking. I'm just going to.
But
make
I think
sure
to
date.
see now that this conversation has now moved to the main populace of conversation, right? Like this is a conversation on Fox News and CNN, and this idea of the evangelical right, so the actual political body entity that has merged together, is more galvanized and more in the public eye in the last 8 years or the last 6 years than it ever had been. So that trajectory that he has listed has galvanized pretty hard so I don't know, it provokes very interesting conversations, because the opposite of, or the flip side of the making enemies thing is really just a grasp for power, right? Like when you look at that definition, the same definition in reversed is you fight a war to gain something over the top of somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so essentially creating conflict is a way of grasping at power. And obviously creating walls and boundaries is a way of creating something that is exclusive and elite, and something that people have to want to be a part of, or have to apply or hit some kind of standards to be a part of. It's like a country club. Like you have to have a certain amount of wealth, or you have to know the right terminology or vocabulary to be a part of this special thing, and otherwise you can't.
That's right.
So it's kind of that same type of model, and that is a power move, right? It's like,
well, I mean, all that stuff about boundary markers versus centered sets, I mean, all of that applies.
Yeah. All that was in there while you're reading that. Yeah. What's interesting to me is, and to go back to last week, is like, so the turn your other cheek stuff, right? So the way that you articulated that verse, the way that we grew up with it as kind of like, you just keep taking the abuse. You just keep turning the other cheek until, just take the hit. We don't retaliate. We don't respond with violence. And then now there's evangelical preachers. I don't remember who it was that recently was just like, you run out of cheeks at some point, right? Like, it's like you can only model this Christ-like thing for so long until you run out of cheeks to offer, to hit.
Wow.
And so now we have to fight back is the message there, right?
Yes.
And that's not what I was advocating for, but it's interesting in the idea of the, honor code system with being slapped and kind of forcing someone to hit you open-handed instead of backhanded, and kind of what that insinuates is not fighting back, but there is something in there implied of like resistance, and it is peaceful resistance, but there is a advocation for something in there.
Yes.
So when you look at it, it's granted the culture war thing is not the right, and virtue signaling is obviously pointless, or not pointless. It's even worse. It creates a toxic culture because it's hollow. So how do we, like, to turn the other cheek? So that's been brought up not just in one of the emails that you read, but also someone else brought that up recently, also in regards to this kind of topics. What is
creative resistance? What does that look like?
Sure. And we've talked about MLK, we've talked about Gandhi, we've talked about Mother Teresa, we've talked about Shane. Yeah. As kind of forms and functions of that. But as, the original question from last week, as the right makes power grabs to try to exert power over, what does the creative resistance within turning your other cheek look like within that?
Yes. Man,
because that trajectory is real. Like the one you just read, the one that he talked about, that is a very real thing. And it has been marked by really gnarly things like segregation and how, the reality of how abortion replaced segregation issues, and whatever you think about abortion. But regardless, it was also a power move. And there's things like that have been pushed into the forefront of the guys that are at the head of the evangelical, whoever those people are. It's a different group of 4 or 5 men usually through the different eras of time. But then that trickles down, obviously, because it gets told that this is what God's desire and mandate is for us as his followers is to exert this power over a specific group of people. Obviously not worded that way, but
yeah. Well,
what do we do, Mike?
Some word it that way, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. There are people that are like, hey, this person is less than you. Make sure that they understand that.
No, so Christian has a section on the superiority, the God-ordainedness of Christian thinking, in the sense of, like, he has one quote. So it's like thousands of interviews he's doing with people, with surveys and blah, 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 blah. And there was one sentence I thought that so perfectly summed up that posture. It said, we as Christians have to understand that we have the answer. And I thought, that posture, that's it. Now, on the one hand, I'm really sympathetic to that, because I actually do think following Jesus is the best way to be human. And I actually think the kingdom of God is real and has come and is coming. So I understand the temptation to look at the world and to say, hey, I've really found sustenance here. I would encourage you to look at this, right? So I get that. But the way of framing it, that kind of takes me off of my cross. And again, when we talk about getting on and off your cross, we're talking about embodying the attitude of Philippians, where Jesus of Nazareth had all the rights and prerogatives of God, but he did not use those or exploit those to his own advantage, but rather he humbled himself and poured himself out for the sake of others. That's what it means to be on your cross. So to be off your cross means I look on the world and I think, okay, I've got the answer. Everyone needs to hear it. And because it's the answer, it doesn't matter how I convey the answer, because it is the answer. And so that automatically makes it correct. Mm-hmm. And so much of the trouble that I get in and we get in is that we think the ends justify the means, right? There are things that are so urgent and so important, we have to get off of our crosses.
And I literally used that statement as you literally spoken out.
Yeah. We run out of cheeks. That's fine. It just means you do not believe the words of Jesus. You think you know better. And I get the temptation. I think I know better in so many other ways. So I succumb to that too. But the Christian culture war narrative is rooted in the powers and the principalities, and it just feeds wrath into the world system even more. And so it's not surprising it bounces back. And then we use the wrath of the world because of our sin. We use that as justification that we're right and that we're victims. And so we plead even harder. It's just this entrenched cycle that I don't know how to address in any other way. Like one of our emailers said, okay, we want to speak truth to power. Great. Let's speak to those in power in the church. And that's happening, right? I mean, we've had more examples this week of people speaking truth to power in the evangelical church. Hallelujah for that. And we're very, very grateful. But to see and posture myself as a Jesus follower as being the one who has to speak truth to power, it's a tough sell. I don't see that invitation given to the early church at all anywhere. You will look in vain for that. So let's. I want to read this email because it directly is going after kind of your question. So now what?
Well, that was perfect.
Mike and Tim, I was very, all caps, conflicted and convicted by the discussion in the latest podcast, Faithful versus Effective. It really hit close to home for me. On the one hand, I completely identify with Tim's point of view. While I want to agree with the points that Mike was making, I'm really struggling. As an attorney, I want to steel man any opposing arguments to try and see the best of what the other side has to offer. But in our current social debates, I just don't know what to do. Over the last 3+ years, I've seen my own relationship with my in-laws and close family deteriorate over disagreements about Trump and COVID. Prior to 2016, we were very close. And now, these wonderful Christian people in our lives have excused the behavior of the former president. They denigrate all liberals as child molesters, and worse, and that broke our hearts. There's no way to reconcile what they confess they believe with now what they wholeheartedly endorse. By the time COVID came along, things got worse. They have 2 grandkids they have yet to meet because they refuse to get vaccinated, to isolate, to mask, or even test for COVID. We've heard this story over and over at this point. I've always tried to fall back on Mike's admonition that we should have more in common with other Christians than any other social group or class to which we belong. If we're center set and that center is Christ, that is what should be important. Agreed. But I really struggle with the idea when other professed Christians aren't acting anything like Christ. Yeah, I think we all do. There are too many Christians who seem to value their Second Amendment rights more than the admonition to turn the other cheek and walk the extra mile with your accuser. It's really hard to see that we're both striving after the same God. And even when I try to speak the truth in love, I admit that my own resentments or desire for the safety of my family make it hard to even try and see some common ground to realign us. Now, man, can't we all relate to that in some way, shape, or form? From either direction. From either direction. We could have conservative folks, write in and say, hey, I used to be close to so-and-so, but now they're woke and they worship at the altar of CLT or CRT and, justice and whatever else. So yes, this has stirred it up. So maybe that's where I want to agree with Mike, even if intellectually or emotionally, I don't know if I'm 100% there yet. I look at the early church, and despite true serious persecution, they continue to be caring for the poor, helping the needy. They didn't seek social political power, but led by the power of their example. Come on! Someone's preaching there. With this sacrificial love, they eventually outlasted their persecutors. It's really hard to see that in the moment. Yes. I want to scream at people who want to judge the sex life of others while they trample on the needy and vilify refugees. The hypocrisy is staggering. And like Tim, I feel like something has to be done, and now. But I don't have any good answers to what that should be or look like. Or maybe I do know an answer, but it's not immediately satisfying, so I go to plan B. I don't want my love to eventually be like dumping hot coals on my enemies. I want to dump those coals now. Only Jesus didn't promise us instant gratification, right? I want to pour hot coals instantly, and I don't want to wait for that to catch up to them down the road. There may not be much of a point to this or question in all this, but I want to let you wanted to let you know I hear and deeply appreciate the conversation you're having. So here's an attorney.
Yeah.
Right? Immersed in the system.
Yeah.
And fighting for what's good, right, true, and beautiful.
Yeah. It is very complicated.
Yes. Yes. But I love, so the fact that this person is feeling both sides of but we need to do something, but it has to be Jesus-like. But we need to do something, but it has to be Jesus-like. That's it. Yes, we have to do something. When Jesus tells the parable of the wheat and the weeds, we looked at episodes ago, where he talks about how an enemy farmer sowed like weeds in the big field, and the workers all come to the owner and say, hey, owner, who did this? And the owner's like, an enemy did this. And then they're like, hey, do you want us to go and pull up the weeds? And the owner's like, nope, I want you guys to wait because we'll sort it out at the end. And we've talked about how that is such a great picture of how we're to relate to the world. We're to work for the good of the field,
right? Even
if we're not quite sure who the good people and the bad people are or turn out to be. That's not our lane. And but the idea that the initial instinct of the workers, once told an enemy was involved, was to, well, do you want us to pull out the weeds ourselves? Do you want us to pull up the weeds ourselves? And I love that the owner says, nope, let them grow together. And so there's a sense in which if we're not experiencing both poles of, I need to do something, but it needs to be a Jesus-y thing, but I need to do something, but it needs to be a Jesus-y thing, then we've somehow lost it. We've somehow lost the plot. Sitting in that tension, That is exactly the tension of the kingdom. The kingdom is now. And so shouldn't there be justice now and peace now and shalom now? But it's coming. It's not fully here yet. So the temptation is to try to usher it in ourselves. The whole point of the wheat and weeds thing wasn't to be passive. Jesus never calls us to be passive. Turning the other cheek, as we saw, isn't passive. Walking an extra mile, not passive. No, we are called to actively and liturgically resist the narratives that are antichrist, even if they come guised in Christian language.
Right.
Well, what's that look like? Oh, I'll tell you what it looks like. First of all, worship with the community. Second of all, it looks like generosity and blessing instead of cultivating a scarcity mindset. Thirdly, it looks like humility and not claiming rights and privileges for ourselves, but looking to center both economically, politically, and in all ways those who have been traditionally marginalized by the evangelical community. Right? It looks like living a prophetic lifestyle. Spiritual warfare in the Bible has very little to do with addressing demons by name and has everything to do with living a shalom, rebuilding kind of life in your dynamics with other people. So I want to live an anti-racist kind of life. Not because I'm woke, but because racism is one of the things the enemy, the powers and the principalities use to divide people from each other. So all of those divisions, Gombis is a great way to say this, all of those differences that are God-given that turn into human divisions, which are demonic, we want to resist.
Yes.
So how I live, how I spend, how I see the world, how I treat my neighbor, all of that's so incredibly practical. Right? I'm voting all the time, either for the kingdom or against it.
Can I push back? And I'm going to go a little bit further out into the weeds of the left. Just for fun.
Yes.
I have to figure out how to articulate this in a
Don't. Just do
careful
it.
way. So being anti-racist.
Right.
And that kind of stuff, or voting well and intentionally.
In my everyday life, yes.
Yeah, and kind of inhabiting those roles are all great. Again, and I know this word has also become a triggering word for people, but is from a privileged position because you can do a lot of that stuff insularly from your desk, also even from your church, without it really being something that is tangibly going out and helping the single life or whatever. And so the thing that I keep struggling against is like, even with like the both sides of it and the like pushing back. So like the woke thing, like we've talked about, that was a phrase that the African American community used to help each other be like present and aware of the threat against them. And the white conservative culture has taken that away, like many other things, and turned it into into something negative,
right? About
like people caring about other people, and it's caught on so much that now we even use it as the pejorative that they stole and made it into, and so it's like it's not. I'm still struggling against the of how active to be involved because
but hold on. Can I interrupt you? Yes. Just to ask this question. Were you always this way? Did you always think the things you think right now?
Well, how do you mean?
Well, I mean the statement you just made about race. Have you always thought that way?
That we are stealing things in that very specific way? I think so, yeah. Okay.
See, I haven't.
I mean, well, but it was not as nuanced. I understood that there was a chasm that had been built, and like you just said with Gombis, like that what God designed as this beautiful difference, we've turned into how did you say it? Like
division.
A division.
Yeah.
And so I think even as a kid, I recognized that in a very broad sense. That it didn't make sense, like reading Shakespeare when you're a kid, and it's like, if you prick me, do I not bleed? Like, there was this idea that you know what it was? It was 1980s Chris Claremont X-Men comics that made you really think about the other.
Oh wow!
And that was the whole like understanding of
Mutants.
those books.
Yeah, that's cool.
But the idea of being like the left pushing back on some of the things that we've been talking about, and then the right pushing back on things like CRT or wokeism and that kind of stuff, that stuff's not real. And so the fight against like things that are causing harm to people versus things that have been made up. I'm a teacher. I'm with all teachers. CRT is not this real threat thing that people have made it out to be, but it has become this imagined enemy like we were talking about earlier. Like we need things to fight against, so we found these things to fight against. And now we're banning books based on myths. And it's like, you can just kind of sit there and laugh at it, or you can sit there and try to take the peaceful route to things, but at some point it becomes hard where, and I think I said it in regards to the idea of thoughts and prayers last week or whatever, that you are just kind of this dog that chases its own tail with really good intentions. Like, I'm thinking and praying about how crazy and terrible these topics are. I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it.
Right.
I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
So it's hard. That's the thing that I keep coming up against is like, I don't see the both sides to a lot of these things. I'm trying to, but I don't. And I'm working to kind of see what it is that's like cementing me into one spot. Because I know that that's whether or not that's even true, it's not a healthy posture to have. So I'm working on that. So you can email me and tell me I'm wrong, but you can know that I'm working on it in the process of.
Totally. Well, and it's interesting, Tim, because the both sidesing thing can be seen as a coward's way out. I remember when the former president made a comment after Charlottesville that there are great people on both sides. Right. After that white sort of power march, and you're like, And so I hear that. I totally hear that concern. But the issue is like with one of our emailers, okay, so his family has cemented in a different direction than he has. So what's the Christian posture to take? See, for me, both sidesing isn't saying both sides are true. I have an opinion over what side better represents Jesus following.
Yeah.
Right? That's not the point. The point is, how do I treat the people who are cemented in opposite positions?
Well, and see, that becomes a nuanced thing too, right? Because I totally agree, and that's how the way that he's describing that is the way that a majority of my family disagrees with my beliefs. Right. And so, but that's just in sitting and listening and loving and having conversation, and that's how I have to navigate that part of my life. Right. But in the strangers who are being hurt and affected on a different scale, I have to do that differently. Like there's a discernment involved in those things that requires different action.
Oh, totally. And I'm with you. I mean, again, the goal isn't to be passive. The goal is just what new creation avenues are available to us that shape the action we take. Totally. That's it. And yes, there's privilege. Absolutely. And the best work, the most cruciform work has been done. Most cruciform work has been done without privilege. Correct?
Totally. Yep.
Privilege and Jesus following have never gone together well. Yeah. And so I'm not suggesting, hey, that this is super easy or not without harm, but I'm trying to just expand the imagination to say, okay, so let's take certain postures off the table towards those we perceive to be our enemies. What's left for me then as someone who is carrying a cross? So I have these people, and I have personally people that I deeply disagree with. Yeah. So what do I do with that? Is it a culture war? Am I, and I imagine there are instances where if there's real abuse and harm being done, that my responses, even in new creation dynamics, would be more direct.
Yeah, running out and tackling the guy that was trying to hurt the
absolutely
example from the
trying to hurt the lacrosse trainer back in the day. Right. Absolutely. Or even when I was a chaplain for a police department, there were people trying to harm officers, and you would wrestle. I wouldn't punch. I wouldn't try to be violent, but I would restrain for sure. Yeah. So absolutely, there is a time for direct action. I'm just saying, okay, the direct action that is commended to us in Jesus looks like suffering, martyrdom, persecution, carrying your cross, humility, generosity, blessing those who persecute you, right?
Yeah.
And I know it's easy for me to say as a white dude, absolutely. But I hope and pray that my courage will not fail if I'm ever in a situation where I'm the persecuted one, right?
Yeah.
And and people, it's so funny. I had a dear brother ask me the other day, like, hey, do you feel like you're ever persecuted? And I was like, no, because of some of the stuff we're exploring in our church, and it's in Tennessee, and it's just a weird. No, I am so privileged. It's absolutely ridiculous. I wouldn't know persecution if it bit me. I mean, it's so foreign to my whole experience. So your point is right. It's easy to invite people onto crosses when you don't have to pay the price of carrying your cross. Got it.
Right.
Totally. But there are ways to practice in the meantime that do cost real things. So it costs me social power or influence or whatever, right? Or relationship, let's say, or whatever, to assume certain postures. And I don't call that persecution, nor ever would I consider Christianity some sort of victim complex. But there is a sense of denial that I can practice without even being in the marginalized place.
Right.
And so I'm not saying that's equivalent to what it is to be marginalized, not at all.
Right.
But I am simply saying is when I conceive of my role in the world, I conceive first of my community, my role in my community and its role in the world. And then secondly, I can only choose between new creation dynamics that when I do engage, and I do, right. That somehow still embody this cruciform way of life. That's it. So as an attorney, let's say I'm an attorney, and again, I'm speaking totally out of ignorance. I mean, the whole conversation.
I'm
really.
always speaking out of ignorance.
Yeah, I was going to say, I shouldn't even have to give that disclaimer. I think that's probably known. And here is the legal code. Is it possible to be super cruciform in that space? Yes, absolutely. Of course, absolutely. Absolutely. Being fair, not extorting, or not doing all the nefarious, shady stuff that Saul Goodman does. I mean, all of that, right? I mean, what a great place to be cruciform. But I imagine it also makes it more difficult to be cruciform because you are introduced to a range of behaviors that might take you off your cross that are perfectly legal.
Totally.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I really think this is such an important conversation. And again, every series or thing that we do comes down to discernment. And I think what I'm trying to do, and I don't think I've really articulated my question well over the last 2 weeks. Because when I see people's responses, I feel like I'm not quite putting it out there. And there's so much rhetoric in our faith. And the rhetoric gives us this weird carte blanche to not even understand necessarily some of the words or things or ideas that we use or say. Yeah. And it also gives us they're like bricks in the wall. Yeah. Like of creating those boundaries that you don't even have to understand how the brick is composed. It's just there to separate. And so when I think about
woke is bad and it's become a tribal word.
Totally. And so the idea of when someone says, the both sides thing, or like there's two ways, but we're really advocating for a third way. Even that's just this rhetoric that it's like, well, what do you even mean by that? Because we live in a country that has a system that is built in a specific way, and offering a third way, that there's a lot involved in just that idea. So what does that actually look like? So with exactly what you're saying, like having a new creation response to every situation, well, that's a hell of a lot of discernment on a daily basis that no one wants to engage in because it's a lot of work. Right. And I think that's at the core of what I was asking last week is like, there is a way to navigate this, and there is a way to love my neighbor. And I love that Jesus pairs love your neighbor with love your enemy. What a terrible pairing of things that causes you to like reevaluate every single situation. Because often loving my neighbor, I have to love my enemy in just to love my neighbor. It's like So it makes a lot of sense. It's a terrible calling because it's so big and requires so much sacrifice.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of discernment in how that works in every situation.
Absolutely. And
so having that posture it's a really complicated, difficult calling that is probably our only calling.
Well, that's what it means to be political as a kingdom of God person.
Totally.
What does it mean to say that Jesus is Lord in this situation?
Yes.
Absolutely. And I'm going to screw it up. So I need a community around me to always call me back.
Totally.
Right? Let's end with this. Let's end with this email. I thought this was super good. And you guys are amazing. We'll get back to the blaspheming and insulting Jesus stuff. Oh.
Right now we're just talking about the practical ways in which we blaspheme and insult.
Yeah,
Jesus.
Seriously. So this is written by a woman who is deeply, deeply grieved over her church journey, her family's church journey, trying to find a church that practices true discipleship and not just, the ceremonial motions of cheerleading for Jesus. And she asks a great question. She asks, kind of, what's the role of the American churchgoer in this mess? Certainly we take shots at us as church kind of leaders and other church leaders, but what's the role of the people in the congregation? And I love what she says here. Here is one big final question. How much do we as the American church, as American churchgoers, treat the church just like we treat American politics? This is so good. Don't we listen to what they are proposing, decide what we think is best, and then cast our vote? When they don't live up to our expectations, and they never do, don't we blame them for their perceived failure? What if God actually has a plan, and he's actually speaking to us individually within our own community to do our tiny little part of the big mosaic? What if being faithful means we are being effective? So I love, so the question, so there are a couple of things she says in here that I think are really interesting. One of the things she says is that don't we treat church like we treat politics? So we take, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, but in our church in Tennessee, we do Q&A in the sermon, after the sermon, because we don't think the sermon is the final word. We think it's this conversation starter, and we want people to feel comfortable questioning church, the public figures of the church.
Yeah, and to be part of the community.
Totally. And so we were talking about something, and we got like 4 or 5 questions about homosexuality. And our church's posture towards that issue. And so the next week, as part of a greater conversation, I started down that road of answering those questions. And the thing that struck me, and I made a comment, but what I was feeling at the moment was no one there is genuinely asking what the Bible thinks. That's not the question. The question is, what does our church think? And we'll determine whether or not we're fans of the church by how you answer that question. And I think that's what she's getting at here. It's like we go to churches not to submit ourselves to the scriptures, but rather to look for churches that already agree with kind of where we're at. Yeah. And so we all sort of sit in... we kind of sit over, and this can be taken way too far, and you get cults from practicing this too much. Right. But I think she's onto something, because I remember in the middle of that conversation thinking, dang, all I'm doing right now is navigating the opinions of people whose mind is already made up.
Right.
And if I can convince enough of them that we're safe, then we're okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which is such an odd kind of posture to be on some of these big issues, is that we no, everyone in the room's already decided what they think,
right?
And how the Bible should be interpreted on that particular issue, which is just fascinating. And so much of the church-going experience, and the reason it's so political is precisely because the politics have discipled us to look at everything through that lens. Yeah. And to filter out messages that aren't congruent because they're harmful, or they're the enemy, or they're a threat, or whatever. Yeah. So we don't have our politics judged by the Bible, we have the Bible judged by our politics, which is
totally
death. Yes, Sethi, death. And to her point, what if being faithful means we are being effective? It depends. If I understand you correctly, I think I'm in agreement that being faithful is the call, and to be faithful is to be effective at being faithful. Yes. But as an American, I define effective as outcome oriented, where I define faithfulness as sort of posture or orientation, emphasis, right? I mean, when I'm faithful, I'm living into something. When I'm effective, I'm trying to make something happen in the world. And I think those two ways of seeing the world, or standing over it or above it or under it, can cause a lot of confusion. So I'm not quite sure if effective just means American effectiveness, then I don't think that's a new creation posture. If faithful means being effective at being faithful, then yes, I'm all in.
Right.
So anyway, I mean, Tim, this is such great stuff, and I had a whole theology of the world built into this conversation that I didn't even get to.
Well, it's interesting with that last little topic, like how much we have fused, like, how would you say it? We've fused entitlement into discipleship. Like there is an entitlement in what it means to be a disciple and what you deserve. And then you think about like them arguing for like, I'll be on the right, I'll be sitting on his right hand side. I'll be on this side. And it's like, it's the same kind of like
same thing,
same argument and same like power play.
Yep.
Because when I think about the congregation, like a sense of like wonder and mystery and discernment, like those are things that I feel have been missing from congregants for a while.
Yeah.
And like not in a way of like there's a way of exploring the issues that you were just talking about that aren't in ways of like confirmation bias, or you know what I mean, like like being affirmed in whatever you think, but in like pursuing the mystery and the wonder of the conversation and trying to find, you know, what is truth and who are we within that truth. But I was thinking about like this week with the Matt Chandler stuff, and not on the actual whether or not he's guilty or what he's guilty of or any of that kind of stuff, but when he was talking about it, how much they cheer for him. And we've seen that with the just this year alone, when someone was coming out about having an affair with a girl years ago, and then she
church in Indiana,
she's like, she's like, it was me, and I was young, and they all still cheer him,
right,
and not her. And there's this weird there's this weird entitlement with not everybody, obviously, but you see it sewn into a lot of what discipleship looks like now. It's the same thing from the book you were talking about. It's the building walls and hoarding power and pushing out and looking in, and I don't know.
Well, the same culture war framework that I look upon the world with naturally applies to my soul.
Totally.
So I have a culture war with my soul. And so I put on, I mean, it's the same dynamic.
That's an interesting picture. Yeah, totally.
And so, you know, the personal gospel is sin management. And in sin management, of course, I have to master my sin and have power over it, because the cross guarantees victory and all of that. And I, used to think all of that was right on, and that's what salvation or sanctification consisted of. Yeah. But the errors are the same in both places. Framing the issue that way automatically means you're starting down a path that will not lead you to the kingdom, not in its fullness anyway. Jesus, of course, can redeem it all, and he does, and hallelujah for that. But yes, so when we see brothers and sisters in Jesus who are claiming things that we see are not congruent with the Christian life, do we call that out? Well, it depends what call that out means. Jesus tells us how it is that we're to see the sin of other people, and that's through the log in my own eye and confessing that, and then seeing the speck in theirs. So Jesus gives us lots of like real practical tips on how to do this in the Sermon on the Mount. So if you want to go listen to that for more, I mean, that's it. That's it. And
we should just do that series every year. And like, you know what I mean? And just kind of go through it again in the current climate. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to.
It would totally be interesting.
It's a really long series, so maybe not the whole thing, but.
It is a very long.
19 episodes.
Very long series. Yes. Yes. So anyway, all right, Seth Erie.
Yeah?
Hey, come here. Do you want to tell everyone goodbye?
Yeah.
All right, what do we want to do? What kind of blessing we want to do today?
It's the, Shema.
Shema?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that, boy. Are you ready?
I picked Tim Stafford.
You're going to pick Tim Stafford? I don't think Tim knows this one.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know all of it.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's you and me do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Ready?
1, 2, 3.
Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord alone. Love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. Amen.
Your blessing will give you just as facing bless to you. So because this is because bless come to hello. I can give my request to you.
Dude, you did both of them?
Yeah.
You did the Lord bless you and keep you too?
You didn't miss a beat either.
Man, you're on fire right now. How was your Zaxby's?
Good.
Yeah? Do you like Zaxby's Ranch?
Yes.
Yes. Are you a ranch fiend?
What?
What?
Hey, Mike. Why did you think that?
Why did I say that?
Yes.
Because you like ranch with everything, right?
Yeah.
Confess it,
It's
Seth.
delicious.
Confess it, Seth. You like ranch with everything. Right? Has there not a food you have not dipped in ranch?
Chick-fil-A ranch.
Do you like Chick-fil-A ranch or Zaxby's ranch better?
I like Chick-fil-A ranch. I like with the dogs and Chick-fil-A ranch.
Man, it's so confusing. Your heart, the allegiances of your heart right now are
Guys,
so
He knows,
confusing.
he knows what's good and what's not.
So hit subscribe.
Hit subscribe, yep.
No, hit VoxologyPodcast.com.
VoxologyPodcast.com.
Please send it to me on Mom's iPad right now. And
Please send it to me on Mom's iPad, which happens on Monday when Tim releases it.
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday.
And the mic is talk of Voxology Podcast.
Yeah, I did talk on the Voxology Podcast. So did Seth Erie.
You guys are amazing. Thank you.
You guys are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much. A big shout out to Tim Stafford.
Big shout out to Seth, Tim Stafford,
Danny
Seth,
Mike.
and Danny Mike because
And
he's
we are
tickling my belly.
a Voxology Podcast. Seth Erie. Tim, hey the fish on.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. Voxology is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is supported by listeners just like yourself. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Voxology. You can also join the community and hang out and chat with us on the socials. Facebook.com/Voxology Podcast and on Instagram @Voxology. Thank you for walking the long road with us.